I want to start with a provocative question. In Illinois, did you know that there's a nuclear reaction powering your house? As I will explain, there is, but it's probably not the nuclear reaction we want powering our society. For the past 3 months, our society has gone through an unprecedented disturbance like never before. We have been in our homes for more than 3 months, not being able to be together, not traveling as much as before, and ultimately using much less energy. The pandemic has made our jobs, education, and social life much more difficult. It's a virus to us, but a sense of hope for the earth. A recent Chicago Tribune article discussed how nature is reviving itself again through animals returning to Lake Michigan shorelines and signs of nature responding positively. So the question is, how do we benefit from this crisis? It all starts from the electricity powering the device you're listening to this speech on. COVID-19 has caused a dramatic decrease in the amount of energy use and thus CO2 emissions, as stated by the World Economic Forum. We should increase our investments into solar energy as it will make that decrease permanent. A house in Waukegan provides an example for how it can work. Let's look at image 1, which shows the energy mix in Illinois. This graph comes from a company called Certisun, which installs solar panels. There are currently 2 dominating energy sources in Illinois as of 2017, nuclear being 53% and coal being 32%. The U.S. Department of Energy states that Illinois uses 143.5 terawatt hours of electricity every year. Waukegan is one of the top 10 biggest cities in Illinois, so we should be a leader in using cleaner energy. What kind of cleaner energy? Solar energy. Our primary source of electricity has been through nuclear power plants, which has been very reliable and consistent. However, the costs to build and maintain these plants are just too high. A good example are 2 nuclear power plants in the Clinton and Quad cities shutting down in 2017 due to these costs. On top of that, even with all the security measures taken, there can still be accidents when operating in these facilities, which can then lead to nuclear disasters like a waste leakage or radiation poisoning. Accompanying nuclear power plants are fossil fuel power plants. Nationally, more than 60% of our energy comes from fossil fuels, according to the University of Arkansas and the U.S. Energy Information Administration, or EIA for short. We still use it because it packs a punch. Coal, for example, is a condensed form of fuel that's been reliable since the Industrial Revolution. But it contributes to many issues in both our environment and society today. The computer you're using uses energy from fossil fuels, thus contributing to global warming. One example from the Union of Concerned Scientists, people that use science to address global problems, is that global warming leads to changes in weather patterns, affecting our crop harvests, and before you know it, negatively affecting our economy. So why should we shift to solar energy? Unlike nuclear and fossil fuel energy, solar energy doesn't produce carbon emissions or nuclear waste. I explored solar energy using Google's website called Project Sunroof. As you can see from the images, I took data from the EIA and from Project Sunroof, which shows how much energy your home produces and its long-term effects. The average home in Illinois uses 744 kilowatt hours a month, so we can apply that to Waukegan. A roof in Waukegan can produce 8,800 kilowatt hours a year, or 733 kilowatt hours a month, meaning that a residence in Waukegan can theoretically sustain itself on solar energy with only an 11 kilowatt hour deficit every month. These next images show the cost estimates for installing solar panels. I use my home as an example in Waukegan. Using Google Project Sunroof again, the calculated cost of installation is $23,871. However, with incentives, that reduces the price down to $18,000. Now, that does seem like a lot of money, but in retrospect, it's slightly less than what Americans paid for a used car in 2018, which is $20,000 according to Edmunds. With a little bit of financing, policy changes, and time, our residents can be making money from these solar panels. Unlike a car which depreciates to $0 over 20 years, my home would save about 11,000 over 20 years if I invested in solar panels. However, there are other things to consider. Of course, the sun always doesn't shine. Theoretically, we can live 100% off of solar energy, but that doesn't mean we can do so in practice. We also have to take into consideration the batteries that we would have to buy. According to Energy Sage, solar batteries range from $5,000 to $7,000, not including installation. But even without batteries, and therefore some continued reliance on our existing energy sources, solar installations are still worth the benefits that they bring. As COVID has shown us, reducing CO2 emissions has revived nature on the Lake Michigan shoreline in 3 months. Imagine what 5 years of such reductions could do. Waukegan can be more than a suburban city. It can be the start of something great. Our city can set the example to improve the environment through the power we use. We've used nuclear and fossil fuel energy for a long time, but with time comes change. COVID surprised us because it was out of the ordinary, but it showed us what the world might look like if we burn less fossil fuel. One way to keep those benefits in solar power is through the energy that's been shining on us since the beginning.